The glass tower of Quantum Tech gleamed in the morning sun, its 60 floors of polished windows reflecting the city skyline like a giant mirror. Inside, on the top floor, Amara Okafor clutched her data tablet with trembling fingers, her heart pounding against her ribs. She took a deep breath and smoothed down her freshly pressed navy blue blazer. Today was the day. After 6 months of late nights and skipped weekends, she would finally present her breakthrough to the entire executive board. At just 22, she had worked twice as hard as any other intern to earn this chance. Her neural translation algorithm could revolutionize how humans communicated not just with each other, but potentially with other species. The executive boardroom doors stood tall before her, made of expensive dark wood with steel handles that felt cold under her palm. She checked the time. 8:58 a.m., 2 minutes early. Perfect. Inside, 12 men and 2 women in expensive suits sat around a long glass table. Most were typing on tablets or whispering to each other. None looked up when she entered. Amara recognized the board members from company photos, including Quantum Tech's famous founder and CEO, Victor Harrington, seated at the head of the table in a crisp white shirt and red tie. "Good morning," Amara said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Thank you for this opportunity." A few nodded without looking up. Victor Harrington checked his watch with exaggerated movement, then tapped his screen. The massive display on the wall lit up, showing the day's agenda. "We have a packed schedule," he announced, scrolling through the items. Johnson's quantum processor update, the Mars colony contract review, budget approvals, and his finger paused, and his thin lips curled into what might have been a smile but didn't reach his eyes. "And now, our diversity hire will present her interesting ideas." The conference room fell silent. Several executives exchanged glances. One man in a gray suit poorly hid a smirk behind his coffee cup. Diversity hire. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Not intern, not researcher, not even her name, just diversity hire. Amara's cheeks burned, but she straightened her back and stepped forward with her chin raised. In her mind, she heard her sister Kimmy's voice. "Never let them see you flinch." "My name is Amara Okafor," she said clearly. "I've developed a neural translation algorithm that can identify emotional patterns in speech across different languages." She connected her tablet to the main display, the screen filled with colorful waveforms and data points. Her work of 6 months appeared in neat, organized sections. The program uses deep learning to recognize emotional signatures beyond the literal meaning of words. In tests, it's shown 94% accuracy in identifying complex emotions like regret, anticipation, and relief across 17 languages, including those with non-Western structures like Mandarin and Swahili. Amara swiped to the next screen, excitement building in her voice. "The real breakthrough is how it—" "Ms. Okafor, was it?" Victor cut her off, mispronouncing her name with deliberate carelessness. "Okafor, sir," she corrected. "Right." He leaned back in his leather chair. "Perhaps in your culture, this passes for innovation," he sneered, "but at Quantum Tech, we maintain certain standards." The words hit like a physical blow. Amara stood frozen, her presentation still glowing on the wall behind her. "This looks like a university project, not something worthy of board time," Victor continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "We're building quantum networks and off-world communication systems. We don't need a glorified Google Translate that tells us when someone is sad." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. One woman executive looked away, seemingly uncomfortable, but said nothing. "Sir, with respect," Amara tried again, "this algorithm has potential applications beyond human languages. The pattern recognition could theoretically—" "Theoretical applications don't interest me." Victor waved his hand dismissively. "Hamilton, what's next on the agenda?" "But sir—" "I said we're moving on." Victor's voice hardened. "You've had your 5 minutes of fame. That's more than most interns get." More laughter echoed in the room, now less restrained. Someone whispered something Amara couldn't catch, and another executive snorted. With hot cheeks and a tight throat, Amara disconnected her tablet. 6 months of work dismissed in less than 2 minutes. She gathered her things, trying to maintain her dignity as she headed for the door. "Ms. Okafor," Victor called as she reached for the handle. "Do try to have something substantive next time. We didn't create the internship program for charity cases." Amara didn't turn around. She nodded once and left, closing the door quietly behind her. In the empty hallway, she leaned against the wall, clutching her tablet to her chest. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not where someone might see. She walked briskly to her tiny workspace in the interns area, ignoring the curious glances from coworkers who had expected her to be gone longer. At her desk, she sat down and opened her tablet again, staring at the algorithm that had been her life for months. What none of them knew, what Victor Harrington certainly didn't know, was the truth Amara kept hidden. Her sister wasn't just any diplomat working at the UN, as her personnel file stated. Dr. Kimi Okafor was Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the recently discovered Galactic Council. And tomorrow, Quantum Tech would be hosting the first alien delegation in human history. A small, determined smile formed on Amara's lips as she began typing furiously on her tablet. Victor had no idea that her glorified Google Translate was specifically designed for what Earth would need most: understanding beings whose language might follow entirely different rules. "Let's see who's laughing tomorrow," she whispered to herself, and kept working. Morning sunlight barely touched the streets when black government vehicles surrounded Quantum Tech headquarters. Men and women in dark suits with earpieces positioned themselves around the building, checking equipment and speaking in hushed tones into their wrists. By 7 a.m., a 2-block perimeter had been established, and curious onlookers gathered behind hastily erected barriers. Inside, Victor Harrington paced the gleaming lobby, barking orders at his staff. He had spent millions preparing for this day. New displays showcasing Quantum Tech's achievements lined the walls, and their most impressive prototypes were arranged on pedestals throughout the space. "The hologram display needs to be 3 inches higher," he snapped at a technician. "And someone polish that quantum processor case again. I can see fingerprints from here." Amara watched from the second-floor balcony, leaning against the railing. She had arrived early, wearing her best outfit: a simple dark blue dress with a silver pin that had been a gift from her sister. Unlike the executives rushing around in expensive suits, she carried only her tablet, tucked under her arm. "Not invited to the welcoming party?" asked Jin, another intern who appeared beside her. Amara gave a small smile. Apparently diversity hires aren't good enough for first contact. Jin winced. "I heard about yesterday. Victor's a jerk." "It's fine," Amara said, though it wasn't. She checked her watch. They should be arriving any minute. As if on cue, a strange humming filled the air. It started low, just at the edge of hearing, then grew until the glass walls of the lobby vibrated. Outside, the crowd fell silent. A beam of light shot down from the sky, striking the pavement directly in front of the main entrance. The light expanded, forming a perfect circle about 10 feet wide. Then, without warning, it vanished, and where nothing had been a moment before, 5 figures now stood. The incendiary had arrived. Security personnel fell back, hands instinctively moving toward concealed weapons. Several employees gasped. One woman dropped her coffee, the cup shattering on the marble floor. The aliens were taller than humans, at least 7 feet, with slender bodies covered in iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Their heads were elongated, with no visible ears and 3 sets of eyes arranged vertically. Instead of a nose, they had horizontal slits that gently expanded and contracted. Their mouths were small and perfectly circular. The incendiary arrival threw the Quantum Tech lobby into chaos. Those 7-foot-tall beings with iridescent skin moved with unsettling grace as security scrambled around them. The aliens seemed unbothered by the commotion, their triple eyes blinking in unison as they observed the humans. Victor recovered first, a practiced smile appearing on his face as he stepped forward with his arms spread wide. "Welcome to Earth," Victor boasted. "I'm sure you'll find our technology most impressive." One of the Exendari moved to the front. Its skin pulsed with patterns of blue and gold. Around its neck hung a small device that hummed softly. "I am Ambassador Zorith," the alien said through the device. His voice was melodic, but clearly artificial. A basic translator provided by the advanced team. "We appreciate Earth's hospitality." The ambassador's 3 sets of eyes focused on Victor, who seemed momentarily unnerved by the unblinking gaze. The alien's skin rippled with new patterns, and Amara leaned forward, fascinated. Those patterns weren't random. They matched emotional signatures she had studied in her research. "Quantum Tech is honored to showcase humanity's technological achievements," Victor continued, regaining his composure. "I've prepared a special tour of our most groundbreaking innovations." The lead Xendari, Ambassador Zorith, tilted its elongated head. "We seek innovation, not hierarchy," it said through the basic translator. "Show us your creators, your thinkers." Victor's smile faltered for just a moment. "I assure you, Ambassador, as CEO, I represent our best minds. Please, follow me." From her position behind the crowd, Amara watched the aliens carefully. Their triple eyes scanned the room, taking in everything. Their skin continued to shift colors. Purple ripples when they looked at the quantum processor, flashes of green when employees stepped back nervously, steady gold when they examined the building's architecture. Their subtle movements matched patterns in her research. The translations coming through their devices were functional but missed nuances that their skin was clearly expressing. The Xendari were communicating on 2 levels, verbal and visual. And the humans were missing half the conversation. The tour group moved toward the elevators. Victor gestured proudly at displays while executives nodded and smiled. But Amara noticed how the alien skin darkened whenever Victor spoke about profit margins or market dominance. Their colors brightened when a young engineer briefly explained how a device actually worked. While Victor led the delegation through rehearsed demonstrations, Amara slipped away to her small lab in the basement. Unlike the gleaming upper floors, the basement was utilitarian. Concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, and cramped workspaces shared by interns and junior researchers. Amara's station was the smallest, tucked in a corner next to the building's electrical panel. She sat down and woke her computer, fingers flying across the keyboard as she pulled up her neural translation algorithm. Come on," she muttered, importing the new visual data she had recorded on her tablet. The program hummed to life, analyzing the skin patterns of the Xendari against her emotional spectrum database. Her hands moved quickly as she refined parameters and adjusted variables. If she was right, her algorithm could bridge more than language. It could translate the complex emotional signatures of the Xendari mind. The program began matching patterns. Dark blue ripples expressed skepticism. Golden spirals showed curiosity. Red flashes indicated disagreement. The Xendari weren't just talking during the tour. They were having entire emotional conversations that the humans couldn't understand. Amara's screen filled with translations as the program worked. When Victor had boasted about market share, the Xendari's skin had clearly expressed disappointment. When he dismissed an engineer's technical explanation, their patterns had shown something like offense or dismay. "They don't care about our corporate structure," Amara whispered to herself. "They care about how we think." A notification popped up on her screen. The tour was heading to the demonstration hall where Quantum Tech would showcase their most advanced technology. Victor would give his prepared speech, focusing on profit potential and Earth's technological dominance. And based on what her algorithm was showing about Xendari values, it would be a disaster. Amara stared at her screen, weighing her options. She had been explicitly told to stay away from the demonstrations. Victor would be furious if she interfered. She could lose her internship, the position she had worked so hard to get. But this was bigger than her career. This was humanity's first impression on a spacefaring civilization. With a deep breath, Amara saved her work to her tablet and stood up. She had 15 minutes to get to the demonstration hall and somehow make things right. The demonstration hall of Quantum Tech had been transformed overnight. Gone were the standard corporate displays and gaudy lighting. In their place stood a single massive device in the center of the room, the QT5000, Victor's pride and joy. It gleamed under carefully positioned spotlights, its curved metal surface etched with the company logo. The QT5000 was supposedly the world's first functional quantum telecommunication system, capable of instant data transfer across any distance. If it worked as promised, it would revolutionize global communications and potentially enable humanity to reach across the stars. Amara slipped into the back of the room just as the demonstration began. The hall was packed with Quantum Tech executives, government officials, and the 5 Senderi visitors who towered over everyone else. Their iridescent skin shimmered with patterns of blue and gold. Curiosity, according to Amara's research. Victor stood on a small stage beside the machine, microphone in hand. His voice boomed through the room with practiced authority. Distinguished visitors from the stars, today marks the beginning of a new era in Earth-Senderi relations. What you are about to witness is the pinnacle of human achievement, a technology that will bridge the gap between our worlds. He gestured to the QT5000. This device can transmit data instantly across any distance without satellites, cables, or conventional wave transmission. We call it quantum entanglement communication. Amara frowned. She had read the technical specifications during her internship orientation. The QT5000 was impressive, but it was only a prototype. It had never been tested at the scale Victor was suggesting. The Senderi ambassador, Zorith, stepped forward. This technology is of great interest. How does it function? Victor smiled broadly. I'm glad you asked. The QT5000 creates paired quantum particles. When one particle is manipulated, its partner instantly responds, regardless of distance. We've harnessed this phenomenon to transmit data. He turned to a technician. Begin the demonstration. The technician nodded nervously and began typing commands into a control panel. The QT5000 hummed to life, lights blinking across its surface. On 2 large screens on opposite sides of the room, identical images appeared. The Quantum Tech logo spinning slowly. We're now establishing a quantum link with our facility in Tokyo, Victor announced proudly. Over 10,000 kilometers away, yet communication will be instantaneous. The machine's hum grew louder. The technician's fingers flew over the controls, but Amara noticed a flicker of concern cross his face. Sir, he said quietly, I'm seeing some unusual energy readings. Victor waved him off. Continue with the demonstration. The technician hesitated, then pressed forward. The QT5000's humming became a high-pitched whine. The lights on its surface began flashing more rapidly. And now, Victor continued, ignoring the warning signs, we'll transmit a full holographic data package, something that would take hours through conventional methods. He gestured grandly toward the machine. Initiate full transmission. The technician reluctantly pressed a series of commands. For a moment, the QT5000 seemed to be working. The screens showed data flowing between locations. The Senderi leaned forward, their skin pulsing with patterns of interest. Then something went wrong. A spark shot from the side of the machine. Then another. The whine became a shriek. Power levels exceeding safety parameters. The technician shouted, frantically trying to shut down the system. Core temperature rising. Victor's confident smile vanished. What's happening? Fix it. I can't. The system is locked. A loud crack echoed through the room as a panel blew off the side of the QT5000. Sparks showered the nearby floor. The screens went black, then filled with error messages. Systems failing. A technician shouted as smoke poured from the main demonstration unit. Warning lights bathed the room in red. Alarms blared throughout the demonstration hall. Security personnel rushed forward, urging people toward the exits. The government officials hurried out, casting worried glances back at the smoking machine. The Xendari delegation stepped back, their skin darkening, a sign Amara recognized as disappointment. The patterns shifted to deep purple with jagged red lines, danger recognition and decision-making, according to her algorithm. This concludes Earth's potential evaluation, Ambassador Zorith announced, its translator voice flat and final. Your species is not ready. The words fell like a stone in the suddenly quiet room. Even the alarms seemed to fade into the background as the meaning became clear. Humanity had failed its first contact test. Victor's face turned purple. He looked around frantically, searching for someone to blame. His eyes landed on Amara standing near the back wall. This is sabotage. He pointed at Amara, his finger shaking with rage. She did this. These people always undermine. He stopped mid-sentence, seeming to realize what he was saying in front of the aliens. But it was too late. The Xendari skin had shifted again, this time to a pattern Amara hadn't seen before, small dots of white against a dark background. Their three sets of eyes turned toward her with sudden interest. What did you say? Ambassador Zorith asked, its translator struggling to convey the complexity in its voice. Victor tried to recover. Nothing. Nothing. A minor internal issue. Please, if you'll allow us to reset the system. But the Xendari ignored him, moving toward Amara with flowing, graceful steps. The crowd parted before them, confused and worried. You, Ambassador Zorith addressed Amara directly. Your superior claims you interfered with this demonstration. Is this true? Amara stood her ground, though her heart pounded in her chest. No, Ambassador, I had nothing to do with this failure. But I'm not surprised it happened. Explain, the alien commanded. The QT-5000 isn't ready for this level of transmission. It was never designed to handle a data package that size. The specifications clearly show its limitations. Victor pushed forward. This is absurd. Security, remove this intern immediately. Two security guards moved uncertainly toward Amara, but they froze in their tracks as the conference room doors swung open. A woman in diplomatic attire stepped in, her presence commanding immediate silence. She wore a tailored suit with subtle gold accents. Her hair was styled in elaborate braids with golden threads woven through them. Despite the chaos, she moved with calm authority, surveying the room with measured intelligence. Ambassador, Victor stammered, recognizing Dr. Kimi Okafor. His face, previously purple with rage, now drained of color. The Xendari turned, their skin shifting to patterns of recognition and respect. Bright gold spirals that Amara's algorithm identified as positive acknowledgement. Ambassador Zorith, Kimi greeted the alien with a slight bow. I apologize for this unfortunate incident. Dr. Okafor, the alien responded. Your arrival is timely. We were just concluding our assessment. Perhaps that conclusion is premature, Kimi suggested smoothly. She walked through the room, nodding politely to the stunned executives until she reached Amara's side. I see you've met my sister, Kimi said calmly, walking to Amara's side. Her hand rested supportively on Amara's shoulder. The room erupted in whispers. Victor's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Your sister, he finally managed. Yes, Kimi replied. Amara Okafor, one of Earth's brightest young minds. She turned to the Xendari. Ambassador Zorith, I believe there is more to humanity's potential than a failed machine demonstration. Perhaps we should discuss what really matters in first contact between civilizations. The Xendari skin shifted again, curiosity returning in waves of blue and gold. We are listening, Ambassador Okafor. In the center of the room, the QT-5000 gave one final spark and went dark, forgotten by everyone except the technicians still trying to prevent a fire. All eyes were now on the Okafor sisters and the towering aliens standing before them. The real first contact was just beginning. The smoking remains of the QT-5000 cast long shadows across the demonstration hall. Emergency sprinklers had activated briefly, leaving small puddles on the floor that reflected the red warning lights still flashing overhead. The air smelled of burnt plastic and failure. Victor stood between the Okafor sisters and the Xendari delegation, his expensive suit now wrinkled and damp. His carefully composed CEO persona had cracked, revealing the panic beneath. "Ambassador Zorith," he said, forcing a smile, "there's been a misunderstanding. Dr. Okafor is here as an observer. The demonstration experienced a minor technical difficulty that we can easily resolve if you'll grant us a short recess." Kimi raised an eyebrow, but remained silent, watching her sister. The Xendari's triple eyes blinked in sequence. Their skin displayed patterns of dark blue. Skepticism, according to Amara's research. Ambassador Zorith turned toward the exit, the other 4 aliens following suit. "Wait," Amara said, her voice stronger than she expected. Everyone turned to look at her. "The demonstration can continue," Amara said softly, stepping forward with her tablet. "May I?" The Xendari ambassador hesitated, then nodded. Its skin rippled with small golden dots. Curiosity overriding disappointment. Victor moved to block her. "This is absurd. She's just an intern with no authorization to." "I believe," Kimi interrupted smoothly, "that the ambassador has granted my sister permission to proceed." She placed a firm hand on Victor's shoulder. "Perhaps we should allow our guests to decide what interests them." Reluctantly, Victor stepped aside, his face tight with anger. Amara approached the main control console where the technicians were still trying to salvage the demonstration. "May I connect my tablet to the main display system?" she asked. The lead technician glanced nervously at Victor, who gave a stiff nod. Amara plugged her tablet into the system. Her hands trembled slightly, but her mind was clear. 6 months of work, countless nights of coding and recoding, all for this moment. "What I'm about to show you isn't about sending messages across space," she explained, addressing the Xendari directly. "It's about understanding the messages already being sent." She activated her program. The room's screens flickered, then displayed swirling patterns of light and color that shifted in perfect harmony with the aliens' skin tones. The patterns flowed and changed, mirroring exactly what the Xendari skin was displaying in real time. The aliens froze. Their triple eyes widened simultaneously. They looked at each other, then back at the screens, then at Amara. Their skin flushed with bright gold and pulsing blue, patterns her algorithm identified as surprise and intense interest. "You understand our emotional language," Zorith said, astonishment evident even through the translator. Its skin rippled with complex patterns that the screen immediately reflected. "Not just understand," Amara replied, "but respond." She adjusted a parameter, and the patterns on the screen shifted to express respect and curiosity. Patterns she had created, not just mirrored. The Xendari delegation's skin flushed with bright excitement. The screens reflected their reaction, then offered a new pattern in response, a human emotion of shared joy. One of the Xendari stepped forward, approaching Amara's tablet. It was smaller than Ambassador Zorith, with skin that shimmered more intensely. It reached toward the tablet, long fingers hovering just above the screen. "This is scientist Trenla," Zorith explained, "our leading expert in cross-species communication." Trenla touched the tablet's surface. To everyone's surprise, the device responded, interfacing directly with the alien's touch. New patterns blossomed across the screens. Mathematical sequences, emotional signatures, thought patterns translated into visual language. "Incredible," Trenla said through its translator. "Your algorithm adapts to new input." Amara nodded. "It's designed to learn and evolve through interaction. I programmed it to recognize emotional patterns across different communication styles, from human language variations to theoretically non-human expressions." "How did you develop this?" Zorith asked. "I studied emotional signatures in human speech across different cultures and languages," Amara explained. "I noticed patterns that transcended verbal communication, universal emotional markers. I theorize that any intelligent species would have similar markers, even if they communicated in completely different ways. And you created this, alone? Trenla asked, still interacting with the tablet. The screens throughout the room pulsed with increasingly complex patterns. Yes, Amara said simply. As an intern, the Xendari exchanged looks, their skin displaying synchronized patterns of blue-gold spirals, recognition and respect. In all our explorations, Zorth announced, its voice carrying throughout the now silent room, no young species has grasped our nature so quickly. The alien turned to face the entire room. The Galactic Council has encountered 17 intelligent species across our section of the galaxy. Each first contact required decades of careful translation work before meaningful communication was possible. This human has bridged that gap in months, working alone with minimal resources. Victor stepped forward, adjusting his tie. His business instincts had recovered, sensing an opportunity to salvage the situation. My company's achievement, he began, stepping in front of Amara. Silence, commanded Zorth, its skin flashing dark red. We speak to the innovator. Victor fell back, his face flushing. Zorth turned back to Amara. Your algorithm doesn't simply translate our skin patterns into emotional equivalents. It analyzes the mathematical harmony behind them, the true language of our thought processes. Yes, Amara nodded. Emotions aren't random. They follow logical patterns, even when expressed differently across species. The screens suddenly displayed new patterns, complex spirals and interlacing curves that Amara had never seen before. The Xendari responded with visible excitement, their skin almost glowing. What is this? Kimi asked, stepping closer. A greeting, Amara explained, watching her algorithm work independently now. The program is extrapolating from known patterns to create new communication possibilities. It's creating a bridge language, Trenla said, its voice filled with wonder even through the mechanical translator. A hybrid communication system that both our species can understand intuitively. For the next 20 minutes, everyone watched in silence as Amara and the Xendari exchanged ideas through the evolving visual language. The algorithm continued adapting, learning from each interaction, growing more sophisticated by the minute. Finally, Ambassador Zorth turned to address everyone. We came to Earth expecting to find a promising but primitive species, it said. Instead, we have found something the Council rarely encounters, innovation that transcends technological achievement. This young human has created something truly remarkable, not a device, but a bridge between minds. The ambassador's skin displayed a pattern of nested circles surrounded by radiating lines, a signature Amara's algorithm identified as profound respect. The question of Earth's readiness for galactic citizenship is no longer in doubt, Zorth continued. The only question that remains is how quickly your world wishes to join us. In the back of the room, Victor Harrington stood forgotten, his grand technology demonstration in ruins, watching as a young intern he had dismissed changed the course of human history. Sunlight streamed through the wide glass walls of the newly established Earth Embassy to the Galactic Council. 1 week ago, this building had been an ordinary government office. Now it stood as humanity's first official connection to the stars. The transformation had been swift. Alien technology had helped renovate the structure overnight, embedding interactive surfaces and atmospheric adjustments to accommodate various species. 1 week later, Amara stood in the newly established Earth Embassy to the Galactic Council. Through the window, ships from 12 alien civilizations orbited Earth, the fastest diplomatic recognition in Council history. Their lights blinked against the blue backdrop of the planet, visible even in daylight. Each vessel represented a different civilization, drawn to Earth by news of the breakthrough. Amara pressed her palm against the cool glass, still unable to believe how quickly everything had changed. Her algorithm had been uploaded to a central galactic database, where it was already being adapted for use across dozens of species. Her name was now known across several star systems. Quite a view, isn't it? Kimmy appeared beside her, dressed in formal diplomatic attire. The Gritani ship, the one with the silver wings, traveled over 200 light years to meet you. To meet me. Amara shook her head in disbelief. I still can't believe any of this is real. Believe it, Kimmy said, gently tugging her sister away from the window. The Earth delegation is waiting. It's time. They walked together through wide corridors, lined with a mixture of Earth art and alien artifacts. Gifts from the visiting species, staff members, a mix of humans, and 3 Xandari assistants, nodded respectfully as they passed. The main conference room had been prepared for the historic meeting. Representatives from 30 nations sat around a large circular table, nervously adjusting papers and whispering to each other. At the far end of the room stood Victor Harrington, his face tight with barely controlled anger. The Quantum Tech logo was prominently displayed on the wall behind him. The room fell silent as the Okafor sisters entered. Amara felt a flutter of anxiety in her stomach. Just 2 weeks ago, she had been a nameless intern. Now world leaders were standing to greet her. Please be seated, Kimmy said, assuming her role as Earth's ambassador. She and Amara took their places at the head of the table. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. The speed of these developments has surprised everyone, including our new galactic friends. She activated a display in the center of the table. A 3-dimensional map of the local galaxy appeared, with Earth highlighted in blue. The Galactic Council represents over 40 intelligent species across this region of space, Kimmy explained. They have been observing Earth for decades, waiting for signs that we were ready for contact. Ambassador Zorith's visit was meant to be a preliminary assessment, one that was expected to conclude we needed at least another century of development. Murmurs spread through the room. But Kimmy continued, thanks to my sister's breakthrough, that assessment changed dramatically. The Council has voted unanimously to offer Earth provisional membership, effective immediately. Applause broke out around the table. Only Victor remained stone-faced, his fingers drumming impatiently. When the noise died down, Kimmy's expression grew more serious. The Council has conditions, Kimmy explained to the gathered Earth officials. Quantum Tech will lead our technology exchange program, but under new leadership. All eyes turned to Victor, who straightened his tie and began to stand. Effective immediately, Kimmy continued, my sister, Amara Okafor, will serve as CEO of Quantum Tech's First Contact Division. Victor's face contorted with rage as understanding dawned. This is outrageous. He exploded, slamming his fist on the table. That company is mine. You can't just. The decision is not mine. Kimmy cut him off calmly. It comes directly from the Galactic Council, and it has been endorsed by your own board of directors. She nodded to an aide, who distributed digital tablets to everyone present. The documents are all here. The Council was quite clear. They will only share technology with the mind that created the bridge between our species. This is theft, Victor hissed. Corporate espionage. I'll fight this in every court on the planet. You're welcome to try, Kimmy replied evenly. But you should know that 17 galactic civilizations have already offered Earth membership in their trading networks, all contingent on Amara leading the exchange. The economic implications are significant. The representatives from China, India, and the European Union were already reading through the documents, their eyes widening at the details. These technological offerings, the Chinese representative said, looking up, are they genuine? Completely, Kimmy confirmed. Clean energy systems, advanced medical technologies, faster than light communication, all available for licensing under fair terms. The Council believes in balanced technological development. Victor stood so quickly his chair tipped over behind him. This isn't over, he snarled, storming toward the door. You people think you can push me aside. After everything I've built. Amara watched him go, feeling a complex mix of emotions. She had never wanted his job or his company. She had only wanted her work to be recognized. Mr. Harrington. She called out just as he reached the door. He paused but didn't turn around. The offer includes a position for you as special advisor. Your experience would be valuable. For a moment, it seemed he might consider it. Then his shoulders stiffened, and he walked out without another word. The meeting continued for hours, discussing the implications of galactic membership, technology exchange protocols, and diplomatic arrangements. Through it all, Amara found herself watching her sister, the confident way Kimmy handled each question, the respect she commanded from everyone in the room. How long had Kimmy been preparing for this moment? Later that evening, as the city below them transformed from daylight to a sea of twinkling lights, the sisters stood alone on the embassy's rooftop garden. The air was cool, carrying the scent of night-blooming flowers that had been planted alongside alien vegetation, a symbolic garden of cooperation. 28 job offers, Amara said, scrolling through her messages, and 3 marriage proposals, including one from a prince. Kimmy laughed. Fame has its complications. Amara set down her tablet and turned to her sister. The question had been bothering her all day. "Did you plan this all along?" Amara whispered, studying her sister's face for the truth. "Getting me the internship at Quantum Tech, knowing that Xandari were coming." Kimmy smiled, her eyes reflecting the stars above. "I knew you would succeed on your own merit. I just made sure you had the chance to shine." She squeezed Amara's hand. Sometimes justice finds its own path. They stood in comfortable silence, watching as another alien ship descended through the atmosphere, its lights pulsing in greeting patterns that Amara could now recognize as excitement and hope. Below them, news screens on buildings across the city showed a split image, Victor clearing his office, boxes in hand, while on the other side, the sisters stood together at the diplomatic reception, representatives of humanity's new beginning. The headlines scrolled across in multiple languages. Earth join is the STRs. Ready for tomorrow? Kimmy asked. The Xandari want to begin planning the first human embassy on their homeworld. They've suggested you might want to design the communication systems. Amara took a deep breath of the night air, feeling for the first time the true scale of the changes ahead. Not just for her, but for everyone. "I'm ready," she said with quiet confidence, and she was. As they looked up at the stars, stars that were no longer distant and unreachable, humanity took its first true steps into a vast, waiting galaxy, and it had begun with one person who refused to be silenced.